Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into Overtalk. My name is Kid Liquid. And guys, we have a special guest today, but before we get to him, we have Chris Bizzle, Alex Invagination Orlando, Joshua Piscator Lee, Caleb Cable Finn, and of course our special guest, Seamoose Anderson. Seamus, how's it going?
It's going good. Glad to be here. Like the show.
Awesome. So, Seamus, what are you to the Overwatch community? What do you do with the Overwatch stuff?
Who the hell are you, Seamus?
Coming for you, Piscator. So I'm a shoutcaster. I've shoutcasted the Overwatch Regional Clash, which is a collegiate esports tournament, and also I've been adminning that for the past 2 months. Started out with League of Legends. Have had a couple of years of esports casting experience in that, and now that Overwatch is in its beta phase and coming out very soon, I'm really looking forward to it and trying to get involved with the community.
Absolutely. And I will have to say, Seamus is actually my favorite Overwatch caster.
Okay, you know what? You need to stop taking crazy pills, because I don't think you're making any sense right now.
So yeah, guys, we got some news today. Overwatch beta is going down in a couple of days. What, we have about a week left? A little less than a week.
7 days.
5 days.
Yeah, we have 5 days left. But the beta does go back up around DreamHack. So we'll have back up for the open beta around the 6th.
Well, that's because they're having an event. They're having an Overwatch event at DreamHack, right?
Are they?
I thought so.
I've heard things. I don't know if it's confirmed. But
I just heard rumors.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They haven't announced anything?
Not that I saw.
Not officially yet.
I swear somebody announced
They're
it.
doing
Or somebody
something
let
at
it go on
PAX.
Facebook.
They're doing something at PAX. But we don't know.
Oh, maybe that's what I'm confusing it with.
Maybe. But
I mean,
yeah.
anyways, continue.
Point is that we're losing the beta soon, but we're getting closer and closer to release. And speaking of that, BlizzCon tickets are up for sale as of 4 minutes ago. So I'm waiting in line.
And they're gone.
Yeah, I'm waiting in line patiently. I'm not entirely sure, but
They're not sold out already?
I don't know. It says refreshing. It's still in line.
Yeah, 4 minutes ago, you're over with.
Well, hey man, I've been sitting in line for 4 minutes. But let's get to the show, because the show is actually centered around esports this week and sort of the growing esports scene that's kind of evolved around this game's beta. I guess Seamus, we'll start with you. What have you seen sort of the growth pattern of Overwatch esports throughout the beta here?
So it's pretty interesting. I know that there's a lot of folks who haven't been able to play the game who are a little bit salty that they haven't been able to play, and there's a lot of people questioning, oh, how can you have a esports scene when the beta hasn't even started? And it's pretty wild how many people have just played the game that are currently in the beta and that are just really, really invested in growing the scene and stuff. And I think once the game, that's kind of awkward.
Like some porn music going on. He really likes this beta.
Right?
Yeah, I actually
He's a dirty boy, man. He's gonna do some stuff to that beta. You have no idea.
it's a brand new phone. Just never have.
Is it an HTC phone?
It is. If I should say yes, right? That's one of our sponsors. Anyway, so it's interesting because I think there's a lot of people who think that the scene is going to be really, really big, and now there's a lot of esports teams already involved. You have major players like C9, Team Liquid. You already have some major teams having formed teams and then disbanded them, and as far as the actual player base and how many pros we've seen in the beta phase make it to the professional scene, no matter what it looks like, I'm not entirely sure how much of that will carry over, but I think there's a lot of people who are really, really interested in the scene. Esports as a whole has been growing a lot recently with a lot of majors investors and stuff. So I think the future is really, really bright for Overwatch and esports.
Sure.
Yeah.
Opening the floor to everyone else. What does everyone else think? Anyone jump in?
I very much agree. I think Overwatch has a crazy, awesome future in esports. I think they've had that as a mentality since the beginning of its creation. They've wanted it to be an esport, and they've created it to be an esport. They're building the atmosphere around it. They're building in elements into the game that are good for spectating, that are good for competition. They're trying to make sure that it has competitive integrity to it. All the ranking systems and even just like your player leveling. But I definitely think it's going to be there. Additionally, we've seen Blizzard Activision bought MLG, and they've created their separate esports department. Like, it's almost like a sub-entity separate from Blizzard Activision. And so you can guarantee that that company is going to be throwing a ton of money and resources into creating content, creating events. Whether even if there's not events already existing, they're going to create events to make it happen, and they're going to be further incentivized by digital currency. You know, that's something that some of the previous esports that Blizzard has put out have not been able to capitalize on. They saw its success in Hearthstone, and now they're going to utilize it in something that could possibly have more reach. But, you know, again, they've been building it to reach as broad of an audience as possible, but to get them competitively involved versus, you know, just keep them on the casual side. They want to get people involved with competition. I think it's going to be really cool.
Sure.
It's interesting that you mentioned... Oh.
No, go for it.
It's interesting that you mentioned Hearthstone because Jeff Kaplan recently did an interview with PC Gamer, and they were talking about esports and Overwatch, and he said that Hearthstone is basically going to be their model for Overwatch because they primarily want to make the game accessible and interesting to everybody, and then an esport second. And they're not interested in designing the game around an esport. And they use kind of StarCraft 2 as an example of why they're not doing that anymore, because that was a game very much with, expectations of an esport emerging, and it kind of backfired in a lot of ways. So they do want to make sure that people are playing the game, I think, before they really push the esports. And what's interesting to me, and this could be maybe me taking a little the wrong way, but saying that, you know, with like Hearthstone, the community was already organizing tournaments before the game officially came out. And the same thing is sort of happening to Overwatch. And I wonder about whether Blizzard is taking a back seat on the esports scene and letting the community kind of make the first push. I'm not sure.
Sure.
I mean, I will say I completely disagree with how if that's true, like that's Jeff Kaplan's view. I think it's completely off base, right? So
well, he did say it in the interview.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing with the fact of that he said it. I disagree with the point of view. I think StarCraft failed for a lot of reasons, and I think StarCraft primarily failed, quote unquote. But
yeah, I was gonna say, whoever said anything about fail, it just didn't quite.
It fizzled out.
Yeah,
it fizzled out.
Yeah, it fizzled
out.
It fizzled out. Damn it, you took it.
Right. It's not Dota. So it's not that because it never was going to be that, right? I did not.
I would disagree with you on that.
I don't disagree with that too.
What?
It wasn't like predetermined to fail or anything.
No, I think there's
like,
one factor that killed StarCraft 2. But keep going.
When you take an RTS is a hard genre to play, right?
I would argue MOBAs are harder to sell as an esport than
Really?
RTSs are. Yeah.
No, I would.
Because it all comes down to visibility, right? So the visibility of, I'm trying to think of the best way to explain it. The games that are good esports depend on what's easier to watch, right? What crowds can engage with. If someone's sitting watching an RTS, and especially StarCraft 2 did a great job of making sure you understand units' strengths and weaknesses just by visuals. So like the Zerglings are cheap, small units, kind of weak, but they're great in crowds. Colossus are big, they're scary, they shoot lasers, right? There's stuff like that. That's very easy to see. If you're playing a MOBA, if you're playing League of Legends, there's no indication if you don't know those champions of who's stronger, unless like if you don't know anything about MOBAs, you can't tell anything going by items or like by farming. Literally, the point of an RTS is just to destroy structures and bases, right? Where MOBAs, there's so much more going on. It's a little more difficult to watch and sell as an esport, especially just to like someone that has never seen it before.
Well, okay. So number one, with an RT or with a MOBA, you also have the team factor where there's a bunch of storylines, whereas StarCraft there's only one 1v1 storyline, right? So there's also that. I mean, there are other reasons to watch a MOBA, and like I watched LCS this weekend and I had no clue what was going on. The only champion I knew anything about was Morgana, and that was from like a long time ago, right?
Sure.
So, but like I had a ton of fun watching it, even though I had no idea what was going on.
No,
Okay?
but see, you're coming from a gaming background. I'm saying just from a general esports perspective on what Blizzard's talking about in terms of getting a game for everyone. MOBA's harder to sell than an RTS is, at least in my opinion, from a visual perspective.
I'm also not talking about like it is a like as an esport like I think it is a game, right?
Sure.
I think StarCraft as a game is hard, really, really hard, and
Sure.
really, really punishing, right? And I don't think it like was ever going to be the game that was played, right, for a long, long period of time. I know we had Brood War, right, but Brood War was like really popular with hardcore people and really popular in Korea, and we had that, right?
Sure. But see, I would say it wasn't so much the difficulty of the game that killed StarCraft 2. It was the splitting
Management.
Well, it was the management point of view, and then my main thing is the Kespa thing that happened. So like
Yep.
Yeah, that was a big damper into the momentum.
So like the thing was StarCraft 2, right? We had Wings of Liberty where it's Kespa players are still playing Brood War. So we have this ability to now form up our own. Well, if you're only a StarCraft 2 person, you have this ability to now grow a community with, like, now you have Nestea, you have MVP, you have, Dongrigu, you have, even Huck and stuff like that. Like, you have other stars that are building up this momentum, right? Then all the Kespa players come in and are way better. You have Deer, you have, Flash coming in, you have Bisu coming back, you have Jaedong, you have all that stuff, right? And they all come in and they're just way better and way more talented. And so StarCraft 2 fans that have grown up with, purely StarCraft 2 fans that grew up with, only the people that they knew, like Nestea and MVP and MMA and stuff like that, they don't want to watch anymore because their heroes or their favorite players are getting beat all the time. And then Kespa fans don't want to watch because it's not Brood War, because they don't care about StarCraft 2. You know what I mean? So like that, to me, that's that segment of the segmentation of the community is what killed StarCraft 2. Well, we're getting completely
it was a sequencing issue. Yeah, but if I could digress from that part, or I guess like take a step back into, I forget if it was Chris or Alex who said it, but about Blizzard taking a hands-off approach. I think it was Alex, right?
Yeah,
Blizzard taking a hands-off approach to the beta. So Blizzard very expressly stated for StarCraft 2 that their intent was to let the community drive itself, and they would just put gas in the tank, right? And so that was MLG and DreamHack were the real stars back then. IPL was a real star back then, and Blizzard was saying, let's let them do their thing. We feel that it's better for them to ignite their own fires than for us to pilot all the fires. And so I think that they learned from that. I think that wasn't quite as successful as they were hoping. There were definitely some driven, motivated individuals and groups of people who made it successful and made it kind of. I mean, let's not deny that StarCraft 2 brought esports to North America. It is what it is, and from there, other people just executed the community aspect better. And I think Blizzard has learned from that. They've seen what these other entities have done, whether it be Riot or Valve. What's a third esport company that's? But anyways, they've seen what these Hi-Rez, yeah. They've seen what these guys have done, and they've taken it to. They've learned from it, and they're incorporating those lessons. And I think Overwatch is going to benefit from all those. They are taking more of a hands-on approach. They've done that with StarCraft in the past year or so. They've done that with Hearthstone. They have their specific world championships. They are controlling the competitive scene a little bit more, and sometimes you have to drive the car.
Sure.
Yep.
No,
Yeah,
I think, especially for the beta, we've never seen Blizzard really take a stance on beta. Like for StarCraft 2, Hearthstone, Heroes of the Storm, all that stuff, all of their beta tests were without competition. They did not fund or help with any kind of tournament structure or anything like that for the beta. So I'm assuming something like that's coming. I can almost guarantee you something like that's coming.
Well, I mean, imagine how pissed off people would be if Blizzard did a tournament during beta, right? Yeah. Other people doing it's like, you can't control that, right? Whatever. But if Blizzard held a tournament and they couldn't participate because they weren't in the beta, woo!
Yeah, Seamus, maybe you can weigh in more specifically regarding ORC.
Ready.
Yeah, I mean, Seamus, you're running a tournament, so I mean, what's the response to that been?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't even know if I'm particularly allowed to say this. We talked to Blizzard folks a little bit actually when we started the tournament. Since
Stream down?
originally, Michael and I. Oh, is it stream down? Oops.
No, we're good.
Okay. Originally, Michael, who's the other head admin of the DORC, and I were planning on talking to a couple of folks at Tespos, and seeing are both college students, about how we could structure this, maybe get their support, like put their name on it, and maybe get a little bit more exposure. And so we actually had the good fortune to talk to a couple of Blizzard folks when we started this before the tournament began, and they offered us a little bit of advice. They said, try this, but also gave us a lot of feedback, because it's like you was mentioned just a couple of moments ago. If Blizzard put their name onto a tournament in the closed beta phase when there's barely any of the population player base playing the game, am I allowed to swear on the show? Can you guys imagine like the shitstorm that would happen? That would be insane. So and they benefit from the fact that there's so many different types of community run tournaments that they could pick the best system, or some kind of the best system, and then like adopt it going forward when they do create the professional or the professional Overwatch scene, however it looks.
Sure. The same thing they did with Hearthstone. Conquest was
Exactly.
a community format that is now tournament standard for Hearthstone.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think it's not as if like it's a little bit public relationy, almost to say, we're trying to make a great game first and then a great esport, because you can't have a great esport without a great game. But I think from the get-go, they're very, very interested in what folks who are building the competitive scene, the esports scene, are looking forward to. And I think a great example of that is the fact that Play of the Games, we had that from the get-go. That's like a built-in highlight reel. That's a great indicator that they definitely want people to be able to view some of these moments in the game and be like, wow, that was just purely amazing.
Sure. I will argue with you on one thing, though, Seamus.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree that you need to have a great game to make a great esport. I mean, Call of Duty is a very big esport.
Holy shit! You're only saying that
Shots fired.
You're bringing
Are you
in
serious? I'm so.
Hey, I'm with Chris on this one. I'm sure you with Chris on that one.
As a StarCraft person, I mean that same thing applies to the League. So
Yeah, how's your
Oh,
scene doing, dude? How's
Jesus.
StarCraft doing
Oh
now?
my
Liz?
God.
Want to go there?
But I think it's less about the quality of the game and the fact that just there are fans of the game, right?
Sure.
Like Overwatch is really trying to create fans of a game. I talk to people who don't even want to play the game, and they're interested because of the shorts. So, and these are the type of people that may go to a tournament and not even play the game, but they're interested and they're vested. And Call of Duty is what it is, but people love that game.
No, I know. I was taking shots at Josh because we were talking about this earlier today. The thing
Call of Duty is like one of the most sellingest video games every time it comes out.
Actually,
right? Like,
Most sellingest.
Most
yes,
selling
most
list.
sellingest.
But
Technical term.
it does kind of segue into something else I wanted to talk about. So, Cable, you brought up the thing of MLG or being now owned by MLG or owned by Activision Blizzard. So, look at the properties we have, right? So, or the kind of conflict of interest possibly. So we have.
Oh, there's huge conflicts of interest all the way through.
Well, it's interesting because Call of Duty World Championships is being run by ESL, right? Because most Blizzard tournaments are run through ESL, right? We have MLG having deals to do CS:GO and Halo, right? These are all in the same shooter space. And then now Overwatch is kind of but I mean it's in the same kind of space. Like
it is FPS. I agree.
Yeah, and so like
I think you're gonna get some overlap, but there will be some mutually exclusive as well.
Sure. Like now, do we see Call of Duty go over to go away from ESL and go to MLG? Like, do we start to see Blizzard tournaments being run by MLG now instead of ESL? Like what?
Well,
I don't know. Only time will tell there. I think that a lot of it is more numbers on the background of what makes cheaper sense, and I think that they're more interested in the bottom line numbers than they are in all these cross collaborations and conflicts of interest and stuff. That'll all work itself out. I'm sure that somebody somewhere has a grand plan for it all, and they have a 5-year plan and a 10-year plan of how they're going to take over the esports world. But so does every other esports organization out there, and it's going to keep going. We've seen again since the start of StarCraft, these organizations grow and strengthen themselves, and then plan events over top of each other, and the community get pissed, and they kind of get like miffed at each other, and then like create this alliance where they're supposed to coordinate their events together. And I mean, let's not forget that DreamHack and ESL are now co-owned by the same parent company.
Yeah.
And so a lot of this conglomeration and consolidation is going to also keep happening.
Yeah.
I saw a thing today that was suggesting that Disney should buy Blizzard Activision, and what was it? Turner or Warner Brothers should buy Valve. And
Dude,
they were just saying that they should do, like, these huge entertainment companies should buy these gaming companies because these gaming companies are becoming entertainment. I saw my first, I dabble in the stock market and stuff, and I saw my first article today on esports as a business investment as an investment, and I was like, here we go, it's starting, man.
There's the money, boys.
When you got Wall Street involved, holy crap, you just sit down and hold your pants.
Oh,
I'm not wearing pants though.
Seamus, I thought did you have something you were about to talk before Caleb went off?
Oh no, I mean, I just as far as investments is concerned and stuff, I definitely think like there's a lot more, a lot of really interested eyes, and I was gonna say that real quick. I feel like after we heard about the acquisition of Activision Blizzard acquiring MLG, they still had the like huge CS:GO major, right? And that was one of the most successful global offensive majors that we've seen. And I think even though the parent company might not even be developing that game, I think they recognize that MLG as a brand on its own of delivering quality esports experiences is too valuable, I think, just to pass up and just focus on pigeonholing themselves in the games that their companies produce. I'm curious to see where that, like, the acquisition is going, because I still feel like there's a lot of stuff that they're still doing, that are planning on doing with it, that they haven't really showed us. But MLG is similar to ESL in the way that it was always sort of like a gaming agnostic, like doesn't matter what game, but they always deliver quality esports experiences.
Yeah. I mean, MLG has always been paid by the developers, and they basically refuse a contract unless the developers pay them, or unless there's some huge community-driven motivation. Like, I think Melee was one of the few that they just took on based on community. But other than that, they have expressly rejected contracts if the developer does not contribute to the event.
And they did that in years ago, like when I was like 10 years old, back with like Halo 2 and stuff, which was really cool because in a way it was like Generation Zero of esports. It was they were pushing for developer support of the game without even esports being like a real concept. Now that it is a real concept, they're getting like tons of like support, tons of money, and people are like, oh yeah, totally, please let me go to MLG, like put our game here.
Yeah.
I saw an interesting article that was an interview with Sundance and Adam Apicella.
Yeah.
Is that how you pronounce his name?
Mm-hmm.
And talking about this whole thing. I wanna find it.
It might, Cable, the interview you might be looking for too. It's funny to think about, even going back to Blizzard, how much Blizzard, it's kind of infamous now of how much Blizzard gave MLG to run StarCraft 2. Remember that? Remember how?
Oh yeah.
That was, or was it the other way around? Didn't MLG? It was a weird deal where one side was paying a ridiculous amount to get that game into MLG. I can't remember if it was MLG paying for exclusivity or if it was Blizzard just paying them outright to put the tournament in there.
I would highly doubt. I don't know all the deals that went on behind the scenes, but I would highly doubt that Blizzard would pay, or that MLG would play Blizzard. But it could happen.
I think it was, because I think it wasn't paying them to get it in the tournament. I think it was paying them for exclusivity for the first year or so. Because remember that first year was all the major tournaments were only at MLGs, because that was when you had like the grassroots stuff where you had like Day 9 first starting to do stuff. You had like that was when JP McDaniels took a bigger role in casting and hosting for MLG, because he was kind of the lead on that side.
Well, okay, so again, let's compare it to traditional sports and the business models that have been developed and instituted over time. And that traditional sports broadcasting entities pay for exclusive broadcasting rights for any one league, or they buy portions of the league broadcasting rights. So let's take NFL, right? ESPN has Monday Night Football, and they have to pay a certain broadcasting, like they have to pay the NFL to broadcast Monday Night Football. And there was this huge thing this year because the bid price went way the crap up. And then, you get ABC and Fox and CBS. I don't know, CBS Sports, yeah. They each bid on different games of the NFL to have the broadcasting rights for those games.
Sure.
Let's take a tennis tournament or the Olympics, right? NBC pays the Olympics a crap ton of money for exclusive broadcasting rights of the Olympics, and no one else has the rights to video or to produce any content about the Olympics besides NBC.
Sure. And
how does NBC make the money? From advertisements. That's literally how they make all of their money, is from their on-screen advertisements. So that's the model. If you do a little bit of research on Sundance and MLG, they came from a traditional production background.
Yeah.
They came from the traditional entertainment industry. So I'm sure that they were anticipating that model would stay, but it has not proven to be the case in esports so far. It's starting to go back there.
It's starting to come back. Because we have TNT and Turner. We have Turner getting exclusivity for CS:GO TV distribution rights. I know some companies are starting to make negotiation deals with certain online platforms like Twitch, YouTube Gaming, Azubu, Afrika. Like, I know certain people are getting really or certain are negotiate exclusivity for those events on those channels as well. Like,
yeah,
we're starting to see it come back. We saw deals like that too a couple years ago, even in the StarCraft 2 stuff with MLG again, and then with IPL. IPL had some exclusive deals too. So
yeah, I think, again, if you read that article that I linked, I put it in Skype and in the Twitch chat. I think Sundance said something to the effect of, we were just too early to the show, and that's why MLG had some tumultuous years there. But they understood the standard model. But esports didn't follow the standard model for a little while, and now it's starting to get back there, and now they're in their zone. And now a lot of, it's kind of scary in a way that a lot of these moguls of entertainment are going to start coming in and just pushing people around. And I don't know, it's going to be an interesting world.
It is. I mean, honestly, I think it's kind of interesting just to see who doesn't rub people the wrong way and who does. Because I think, like, some people are doing it better than others, right? Like, some groups are coming in and putting in a lot of money, but doing it the right way and really diving in and understanding what this kind of community and field looks like. And some people just kind of throwing money at the problem, and those are the ones that kind of fail. And I think it's up to the community to kind of, the community as well as the industry, to kind of figure out and sniff out the bullshit and figure out which one's legitimate and which one's going to help and which ones are actually just here to make a quick buck.
Yeah. I will say what I am excited about, and I guess taking it back into Overwatch, tying it all back in, is I am excited about the increased production value that we're continuing to see. People would have said a year ago, oh, wow, our production value is so good. How can we get any better? Well, that's where these established industry moguls come in, is they know how to make your experience better, and they are making the experience better. And I am really looking forward to that with Overwatch, is to seeing how they can truly make our viewing experience the best possible. We've had some basic level casting and some basic level observation, but it's only going to continue to improve. People are only going to continue to innovate, and Blizzard's going to keep adding tools and expanding the spectator mode to enable that stuff. So we got our casters in here. What are you guys looking forward to for that side, for the production value side of things?
I know I talked about this in the Facebook group chat recently. I asked, like, who are some casters that you guys have seen that you enjoy, or some productions, because right now it's kind of a Wild West situation out there where everybody's kind of doing their own thing. You have so much variation in the way that Overwatch is presented. For example, I mean, Seamoose and I we did the Overwatch Regional Clash, and then since we come from a league casting background, we kind of cast it more like a MOBA, right, Seamus? Mm-hmm. But then again, I remember talking to him and to the rest of you about it when I watched something like the Fish Sticks Invitational. It's really interesting because guys like Fish Sticks and like Joshi, whoever else worked on that project, cast it a lot more like, I compared it to golf, because that's like, they casted it like really, so they're still saying like relevant things and stuff, but Seamus and I go off like the freaking wall. We start screaming, getting hyped, because that's just like the background we're familiar with and what we like to watch, but other people might appreciate that more, I guess, subtle, more measured. Like, oh, that was a very nice trace roll. Yes, I totally agree. The pulse bomb was extravagant, if I do say so myself. Like, I don't exactly it's not my cup of tea. But then again, it's not up to me or to any one caster to decide what exactly is the best presentation for this game. So
It's up to the audience eventually, right?
yeah, I'm really curious to see,
Right.
especially where Blizzard pushes this in terms of I mean, first of all, I think we can all agree that the spectator mode has room for improvement. But in terms of
Yeah.
the actual presentation of the game through storytelling, narrative, like the casting in general, I don't know where that's gonna go. I'd imagine it matches more of the pace and the energy of something like Heroes of the Storm. But then again, like maybe a little too frantic for people. Like Seamus, what do you think?
So, I think fundamentally a caster has like two main jobs. One is to convey information, whether that's about game analysis, about what's going on, about the narrative of the players, and then two, to be entertaining. And I feel like the second part can almost be more important than the first, because if you're giving out information but you're doing so in a bland way, then what's the point? And you're always trying to work with the broadcast and improve it. The spectator mode right now for Overwatch, it's still very, very young, and they've definitely already made a couple of improvements. But it's hard to follow, and it isn't. It's not like League where you have directed cam, and I don't expect it to be, because there's 6 people on both sides and there's a ton of action and stuff. But I feel like there's probably a couple of quality life improvements that at least I can think of initially that would make it maybe easier to follow. Like, for example, like a mini map. Not for the actual players, but if there's like in the bottom left corner for the spectators to see, oh, in this team fight, there's 4 people from the offense, 3 people from the defense. So at the very least, the offense should have the advantage here. And that also make it a little bit easier for the casters just to understand what the information is that they can then relay. As far as the actual speed of the game is concerned, it is respawn based, and the death timers are pretty short. So I think it'll be like Heroes, kind of where there's a lot of team fighting, there's a lot of consistent action. And I think traditionally, at the very least, like for most shoutcasting, there has to be at least some really, really hype moments when the casters are going crazy. You see all the montages of StarCraft or League casters from Korea when they're just climaxing for 20 minutes on end. And I don't know if it'll be that intense, but I feel like there's a lot of moments where it's 99 to 99% in overtime, where things can get crazy. One of my favorite moments from the RSC that Josh and I casted together was a Dodeca 12 time overtime, and it was just over 2 minutes of just us going ballistic, because the one team kept resetting the overtime, and then there was like 3 ults that came up within the same minute, and then people were able to retake the fight, and the other team took it, and then one team lost when their Reaper was like inches away. And certainly moments like that are super, super fun to watch. It's just that conveying the emotion right now and the information is still a little bit tricky, just by nature of the spectator mode being like not having too much information yet. Observers aren't really sure whether or not they're supposed to spectate first person, third person, etc.
Sure, and I think it's something that we can kind of learn from the CS:GO community.
Yes.
Because CS:GO is a little faster paced. Again, it's not a respawn shooter, so it's a little more difficult. But and I think learning from a MOBA as well, learning from League of Legends, where you're not herky. The thing that I've noticed from a lot of Overwatch observers, just kind of watching tournaments here and there, are the herky jerkiness of the camera. They feel like they have to follow the action and be as movement based as the action, where really all you need is that wide shot to see what's going on. In a lot of cases, in a lot of fights. But yeah,
People did that a lot in StarCraft too.
Yeah, I mean,
Ooh,
yeah, it's really.
sorry.
No, go for it.
I just had a thought, like, what would still be really cool? Like, imagine, like, so I think one thing that's going to be important for observers is to look at high-profile heroes. So the Tracers, the Widowmakers, the Reapers, Genjis flanking. Like, imagine if you had, like, third-person view on the main camera, and, like, bottom left corner, you had, like, a Widowmaker sniper, like, just trying to turn the point.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that would be, like, a good balance that observers could probably do pretty easily. And then, like, you get the whole picture, and then you also get, the ace from Cloud9 sniper, like, in the corner, and you could just swap like that. There's still a lot of work to be done, though.
Yeah, I think that the production side is going to really highlight those elements the best. We've seen that they tried it in StarCraft. It would have been successful had the technology been there, but they did picture in picture, right? And so they showed this rush going on in this base, and then this main attack going on with the main army, and they tried to show the split things going on. And I think your idea is really good there. In one of our previous Overtalks, I think I mentioned how we're going to end up seeing with all of esports, but we're going to end up seeing the standard production room that, at the NFL, where they have 20 cameras and they have a guy looking at all 20 cameras or all 20 screens, and he's got a crew of people who are, a switcher and an audio guy and a guy who's making replays on the fly, right? He's like, and a guy who's doing like what's the X's and O's and direction lines and stuff, and they're making all this crap on the fly, and then they rewind real fast. And you're going to have a director in there who's standing and he's going to go, camera 5, now. Okay, switch to 7. Okay, in 5, 4, 3. Okay, switch to 10, right? And that's going to start happening more. It's a little bit happening. I don't know who saw the behind the scenes at the TESPA Here's the Dorm.
Yeah.
Blizzard did some like live Facebook video feeds of behind the scenes. And they've got some stuff like that going on. I just learned about dual mouse observation to cut out that herky jerkiness.
I mean, the thing that's kind of cool too, Cable. I don't know if you know, a lot of the major tournaments that have been happening lately have that set up. So like Riot Games has that set up. The International usually has that set up. CS:GO Columbus Major had that set up. Like it's getting to the point where these productions are running, 50, 60 man teams just on the production side, just for camera crews and observers and sound mixing, stuff like that. Like
I can only imagine the price of that. I mean, it's obviously worth it. They're making money on it, but I mean, think about it. Full-time cameramen, full-time switchers, all the equipment. Your director probably makes 2 to 3 times as much as any cameraman. The price starts exponentially adding up there.
Sure.
Bring in the interns, baby.
Yeah,
I was about to say, like, esports observers, they're just like, well, we'll give you food and housing, like $5 an hour.
Hey man,
And then they let them cast like Pulse.
I don't know if anyone remembers. I don't know if anyone remembers, but I remember when I was with IPL, working with StarTel Legend, and watching that guy observe and understand the game and understand the camera angles to take from a StarCraft 2 perspective. It was absolutely incredible and taught me a lot about where we need to go in terms of production. That guy was incredible, if anyone remembers him.
but I think it's going to get to a point where Blizzard's in-game tools will reach a practical cap, because you can only algorithm so much, and beyond that you're going to need people. You're going to need people who are watching and switching manually.
Yeah, I think that's something.
We likened it to video game high school, right? Like if you're making a real live action of this firefight or this video game fight, how would you do the camera angles? If you are a real cinematographer, let's start implementing that in our competitive stuff.
And then they have virtual reality spectating, and then you can just be in the map, just watching it from anywhere.
Wow, that is really
well.
Cool.
I mean, have you guys seen the HTC Vive thing that they teased a little while ago?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
It was so cool, man. Like you're watching the screen, you look down, it's the mini map, so you can kind of point and go wherever you want. And then on the sides, you have like all the players, their champions with health bars and cooldown timers. Like you can look at everything.
Like I feel like in a perfect world for every esport that exists, there will be like a camera per player, and then a camera on every major angle if it's an FPS, or a camera on every part of the map if it's like a mobile, whatever. Obviously, like that's not going to happen, because then you need literally 50 or 60 people, or at least that won't happen. I feel like for a number of years at least. But the cool thing about virtual reality really too is that you can sort of be anywhere. And then it's almost, Piscaja, you can disagree or agree with me on this, it's almost interesting for the casters, because for the casters, you have to be able to get like a holistic picture while also highlighting like the most important elements. But if someone's watching like a player play on this part of the map and there's action going on the other side of the map, like how do you tie all those in together on the fly? Is a really interesting challenge, but it's also really fun, at least.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think we talked about having this problem a lot, especially in a game like Overwatch, where things, like you said, get super, super hectic and you have to keep an eye on 12 things at once. But I always joked around saying I've had months of casting the shitstorm that is high school Star League, League of Legends, so I got pretty good at picking out where people are just fighting and diving in 5v5 constantly. But no, that's something that'll definitely these casters are going to have to be on point in order to pick out all the relevant information. But that doesn't necessarily different from any other game. Like games like, I guess, like CS:GO go at a bit slower of a pace, so it's easier to track exactly and anticipate where action's going to happen. But in a game like this, where you can have a Pharah all of a sudden jump into this guy, missile barrage everybody, and then you have to switch to the Widowmaker who sniped her, and the Junkrat who had the rip tire, and
the Tracer's back happening,
and the Tracer's like.
You're probably going to have delays, right? So you're probably going to have anywhere from a 60 to a 120-second delay, and based on that delay, they're going to be able to switch the cameras to the proper angle ahead of time. It's almost like pre-directed in a sense. And they'll be able to eat that time and then extend that time as needed in order to keep the action flowing.
Sure.
But is that going to be something? I'm going to jump in here with like all your crazy camera talk, and just is that going to be something that people are going to be able to watch and understand, or is this something? Do you think that an outsider, maybe someone who hasn't played a lot of the game, is going to find appealing to watch?
I think
it needs to be that way. If it's not, then it's going to be a problem.
But do you think it's like, how are they going to make that work? Like, I can only imagine the confusion.
I think it does, Alex. Just from working with League of Legends as long as I have, and MOBAs in general, it's a lot better. It's a lot easier when you have different angles going on and you can see kind of replays and mini screen, and like Riot does a great job of doing picture in picture and trying to do replay breakdowns and while the match is going on, stuff like that. It makes it a lot easier to follow a narrative. And I think like that's what Cable's talking about, of just like not having if you have a static screen of just action going on and you have a commentary on top of it, sure, that's great, but I mean, you're not really getting, the camera's not helping tell the story. So when you have those different angles and you have different camera or different kind of viewpoints, it makes it easier to say, okay, now you should be looking at this. You should be looking here. It's teaching you how to watch through the camera angles, and which really helps.
Directing, right? Yeah. Literally the definition of the word, directing.
Yeah, it's directing your attention to whatever it needs to be.
I think the game. Sorry, really quick. I think the game also has like naturally, intrinsically has a lot of things that viewers, for the first-time viewers, might actually understand really easy. Like, for example, small heroes are generally squishy. You have the health bars at the bottom. Like, if you're watching a team fight, or you're watching from outside, or you're even watching first-person perspective, and there's a person with a giant shield in front of one team, like, I think it's going to be very easy for a new viewer to see that and be like, oh, that shield needs to break before this team finds an advantage. Or even if you don't know what Tracer's abilities do, the fact that you see she's very small, you might go to first person's perspective, see she has like 150 HP and she's blinking around, gives you some sort of sense of what kind of a hero she is. And then also, because it is a first person shooter, you can just basically outright tell whether a player is good or bad. Yeah, that's a little bit black and white, but based on how their aim is. So I think like it's certainly going to be very interesting for new players, and just a little bit biased since I've played the game for so long at this point. Like, you know, I wouldn't be a new player, and it might not be easy to visualize how they would react. But I feel like actually a lot of new viewers, new spectators, could get the swing of things pretty quickly. At least that's my opinion. I don't know if you guys agree or not.
I would say that they need to have those exciting moments. That's what really draws people in, those exciting, understandable moments. So let's, when this whole Heroes of the Dorm thing went on, and it was on ESPN2, and did any of you read those like hilarious tweets compilation of all the hilarious tweets of people who are watching this thing, of the public? People are saying like, what are these stupid video games doing on my TV? This isn't sports, right? Blah, blah, blah. But I thought it interesting was, now, like I said, now I understand when people watch football and they don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And so he wasn't put off by the game. It wasn't like, oh, this is new, this is bad. He was like, oh, I don't get it. I want to get it, but I don't get it.
Like an accessibility thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And so to me what that is okay, let's take Super Bowl Sunday is basically a national holiday in the United States, right? everybody goes over a Super Bowl party and everybody has fun, whether they give a crap about football or not. And they probably catch a few rounds or a few downs. They catch a few downs of football, when they're watching the game, but they don't necessarily understand. But when your whole house party goes, oh my God, because there's this crazy catch or this crazy tackle or someone's upside down flipping around, his body's limp on the ground. People understand that. They get it, right? These are those
physics.
Ragdoll physics, right? So these are those exciting, powerful moments that we need that will make something like Super Bowl Sunday, whether it be with Overwatch or whatever. But everybody doesn't have to understand exactly the elements of the game. But if it's a social element, if there's a social element to it, and if they especially with this lore part, I think Alex brought that up. I think that's going to be very critical too, because I've seen those same comments of people who say, I don't really want to play the game, it's not my style, but I love this lore, I love the story, I love the characters. They're going to watch the games too, I think. They might not play it so much, but they'll watch them because they're familiar with it.
And I just want to jump in and add on to that point really quick. When Chris and I, we were in Vegas for Inside Esports covering NALCS Spring Playoffs. One of the best interviews, in my opinion, that we got, we focused a lot on the community and the fan aspect of the league community because, like you said, there are a lot of people who don't actually play the game but are in love with the characters and just the community and the vibe itself that they go out to these events. We interviewed a family. This kid, his name was Josh. I remember this because it's an awesome name. It was his 15th birthday, and for his 15th birthday, he said to his mom and dad, yo, all I want to do is go see the NALCS Spring Playoffs in Vegas. And we asked them, Mom, Dad, do you have any idea what the hell any of this stuff is? And they're like, no, I just thought it was like a bunch of nerds playing computer games too much. But the dad out of the three gave the best interview because he had no idea what was going on, but he was getting hyped like, oh man, this Team Liquid team was so hyped. I don't know what was going on, but it looked like they were doing really bad. And this Immortal squad, man, they just took the wind right out of them. All of a sudden, you have this 55-year-old guy who probably shunned video games for the longest time, getting super hyped just because you can't ignore 25,000 people at the Mandalay Bay Event Center screaming over plays. Like, that energy is so infectious, and humans have a natural tendency to want to be social and relate to each other. Like, so adding on to what Cable said, it doesn't matter if you understand what the hell is going on as long as that community is around it. If your friends are stoked, you're going to want to be stoked too.
And even going back to that, Josh, the beach ball scenario was it was like the perfect scenario. So like, it's the perfect example of this. Not even talking about a game. For anyone that doesn't know, so the first 10 minutes, if you don't watch League of Legends, the first 10 minutes it's usually pretty boring. Nothing's happening. Nothing too much is happening. The casters at Mandalay Bay couldn't see the crowd, and of course neither could the stream because the stream's showing the game. There was random cheering happening in the arena, probably louder than what any kind of team fight or any kind of hype moment you could possibly find. There was crazy amounts of cheering. The casters couldn't figure it out. We went back and looked at Twitch chat later. They couldn't figure it out. My whole Twitter feed was full of people going, why is everyone cheering? This crowd is so stupid. What had happened was someone blew up a beach ball, and the beach ball was going around the crowd. Okay, and so the way the Mandalay Bay Event Center is set up is there's a stage in the center, and 4 quadrants, and where the walkways are to get into that center area. And it was whenever it would have to go over one of those walkways, the whole crowd would have to work together to push it over one of these walkways. And if we successfully got it over, the entire crowd went absolutely nuts. And I was talking to Travis and a couple other people about it, and it was just like, yes, this is extremely stupid. But while we're in the building, this is extremely hype. And I know Josh at first was like, what are they cheering about? Oh, it's a beach ball, whatever. But at the end of it, he was cheering his head off, man. It was great.
Dude, some of the most fun stuff is stupid, but that people love it, and they love it together, and that's the point. Take any football game, right? Like, holy crap, they get so hyped, dude. What's wrong? You don't like
do you say it like that? Why
do you know how much you said it?
How much do you know about football?
Right?
How much do you know about football? How much do you know about football, Cable?
I don't know that much about the ins and outs of the rules and the technicalities. I will fully admit it's probably my least understood sport. But I mean, I played it in high school. I played it with friends, but that doesn't mean I'm good at it or I understand what's going on all the time. But dude, you watch those crowds and you like go and watch.
Yeah, dude, they stab
game.
people at those crowds.
They go pretty ham, to be fair.
Not the direction I was going, but
One day we'll get there.
They are so into it that they stab people. You're right.
Yeah, dude. Next thing, I'm gonna go walk up on stage and stab a Korean.
That they hang on their heads, and it's crazy. It's absolute mayhem. But that's what makes it so fun.
At the very least, if you're in a crowd of people that's going crazy, like even if you hate the sport, like if you go to like a football match, for example, you're like, oh, I hate soccer, like American football's the best. For context, I'm half German, so I care very much about soccer. This is a very common perception in the U.S. But even if you hate the sport, if you go with your friends and the entire stadium or like 20,000 people are just going nuts and roaring, like you can't help but have this shit-eating grin on your face, and you'll have people be like, I'm not enjoying the sport. I'm just enjoying the spectacle and whatever. I think that's one thing that esports can definitely do. It's not as easy, not as transparent as like real physical sports, where the fact that he hit a home run is physically very hard to do. But when one person gets like 5 kills on a kill feed or like a pentakill in league or whatever, like most even like laymen will just recognize that as like that was a really brilliant moment.
Yeah, and honestly,
and I think
like,
what we're gonna
go for it.
Oh, that's okay. We keep doing that. And I think too, another point is that like Josh was talking about this a little bit about how it's going to be the younger generation that's going to be essentially forcing the older generation to kind of keep up with the times, right? Like, I'm not saying that every kid is going to just be watching esports and not traditional sports, but you're going to see a lot of it, and parents are going to be like, well, this is the thing I do with my kid now, or like if it's on ESPN, we're going to watch this together. And they're going to be the ones that are going to end up paying to go to these tournaments and driving them anyways. So it's just like they may as well be on board, and they may as well try to understand what's going on. And so that's where I think we're going to start to get a lot of adult fans. I think it'll be surprising.
No, and that honestly, like you're already seeing that now with. That's how Rick Fox got into it, right? Rick Fox got into it because his son was super into it and dragged his dad
Caleb
along.
is old as shit.
Whoa!
What do you want?
GG!
GG.
I'm really sad you didn't hear that. I love you, Caleb.
It's okay, Cable. But yeah,
What happened? What did
That's
I
so random. We were talking about Rick Fox, and then you're like,
know.
Caleb is old as shit. Okay.
So it's okay, Caleb. See, Caleb and I have recently hit daddy mode, so I have a bond with Caleb now. But no,
Hey, you don't need to be able to hit daddy mode, but would not advise. Anyway,
would not advise.
wouldn't advise it.
The more you know with Seamoose.
I mean, we're not gonna get into that.
But no, I think the hype factor honestly is something that's really important and something that you really see with Twitch chat as well, right? Like when you're as bad as Twitch chat is, like sometimes you watch a hype moment, you want to go and find the Twitch chat. You want to go and see like what that looked like.
Like for regular sports, the broadcasting rights are probably never going to be a Twitch chat. But can you imagine
oh yeah,
all the reactions to just everything that goes on in sports?
I mean, like
Look at Twitch chat for Bob Ross.
Dude.
Oh Lord,
That was lit.
Ruined.
It was lit. Beat the
That
devil.
was awesome.
It was great. Dude,
so we've kind of gone crazy here with this, but I mean, were there any Seamoose? Is there any other like particular things about esports with Overwatch that you are excited for, that you hope to see and develop?
It's interesting because I feel like Overwatch is just so unique. It has so many aspects of a MOBA where you have ultimates that are synced up and abilities that are outplayed. You have so many aspects of an FPS. I feel like the potential for the game is, because it's such a combination of so many things, is as high as it could possibly like ever go. While it also needs to have a lot of support in like the spectator mode, and everything needs to be like airtight for it actually to live up to that potential. As for like specific things that I want to see as far as like the game or new types of heroes, I think for spectators specifically, having some kind of a mini map to follow action is really important. I think also like this is a rule set that I know folks have been discussing a lot, is like hero limits. Like having multiple heroes, multiple of the same heroes might be too confusing and not very fun for viewers. And it makes it really hard to balance too. So that's not something that I'm one way or another on. The tournament I'm administrating, ORC, has enforced one hero limit, but I feel like that's something that like the Overwatch community really needs to look at and discuss.
Sure. Any closing thoughts, guys? We're kind of wrap up here a little bit.
I'm really excited to see the esports that develop in Overwatch. I think it's going to be very successful. I think it's going to be very different from what we've seen in a lot of different esports. Like Seamoose said, it's going to be a combination of the FPS and the MOBA genres.
Sure.
And I think that there's a lot of interesting overlap there, as well as the way that Blizzard's been building it up. I'm really excited to see where the esports goes. And if they put the money behind it to start it, if they jumpstart this thing properly, sky's the limit.
Sure. And actually, before we go, Seamus, I want to ask you something that I've talked about quite a bit. I'm not sure how much experience you have, but there's a lot of hero shooters, and I think from my experience, Overwatch skews more shooter than MOBA.
Right.
Like
totally.
In comparison to like Paragon and Battleborn and what we're seeing from Paladins.
Paladins, Gigantic, yeah.
Like all of those are really more MOBA than they are shooter, where Overwatch I think skews a little faster and a little more Quake-ish.
Definitely.
What do you think of which one do you think is more successful as an esport? Like what do you like to see?
That's a good question. Actually, not something that I've internally thought about very often. I think it's honestly, this is kind of a cop out, but it is different. A game that I'm really familiar with is Gigantic, which is a shooter MOBA, but it's way more MOBA based.
Yeah, same with Paragon. I played both.
Yeah,
it's almost the
like
same.
yeah, they're very similar, and I think in the next couple of years, like it's definitely the new class of game that's coming out. It's going to be very popular. I think it's a little bit easier to initially follow the more MOBA games, just because, for example, Gigantic maps are much larger, and there's only 5 people, and action.
Gigantic. Keep going.
Oh my
god. And the action, like there's some lulls in the action. It's not as constant. But I do know that there's a couple of folks who watch games like League of Legends and they're like, "Oh, lane phase is boring. Why are there these moments and lulls of action?" So I think it'll definitely like appeal to different people. Folks who will want 10 to 15 minutes of Blitzkrieg action will probably like Overwatch more. Where people want like a 30 to 40 minute game, like something more like, I don't want to compare it to soccer, but something a little bit slower pace where there's less actual goals being scored.
More cerebral.
Yeah, my like a little bit slower pace game.
Sure. Anyone else have thoughts on that question, by the way, before we move on, before we close this out?
I think it's ultimately it's going to end up what the players choose, I think. And I think Overwatch is more appealing to people because there's already that reputation that Blizzard has from supporting their game, being popular, having that esport presence. While I think these other games, not quite sure, right? So if people are going to see we've got a bunch of games here, which one would I want to invest my time into? It's probably going to be the one that has the history of support behind it.
Sure.
I think coincidentally though, Overwatch, this might be totally biased, so just agree with me. I think Overwatch also is one of the most polished games though. It's not just the history; it's like also just one of the best games so far.
Yeah, and I think having jumped into a lot of them, especially the one that I've seen that's the worst culprit is Battleborn. Battleborn is way too busy of a game. That game has like brush and trees and all kinds of crazy textures all over the place, where Overwatch is relatively clean. Like it's very easy to see what's going on, especially what's going with the craziness that is a hero shooter where you have so many abilities going on. The visibility of the map is extremely important, and I think that the amount of textures and crazy stuff that's going on in Battleborn is just not makes that very difficult, and it ruins your experience a little bit. Like that's the biggest culprit I've seen in terms of just polish and not knowing exactly what they're doing. But yeah, guys, any closing thoughts before we end this out? Any shout outs? Seamus, we'll go ahead and give you the floor to go ahead and give some shout outs or anything you're doing.
I just see a ton of folks from the Overwatch Regional Clash in chat right now, and I just want to say shout outs to you guys for watching.
Awesome. And Regional Clash, that's coming up, the finals coming up soon, right?
Yeah, so the finals are going to be this Sunday. The Twitch channel is twitch.tv/FGCU esports or FGCU_esports. We also have a Twitter, which is Overwatch Regional Clash, if you guys want to follow that. I think it's a tournament that, the casters have really enjoyed. Josh, you can weigh in on that. I think the players have really enjoyed it. And I think also we've had a decent viewership, and I think we're looking to continue that tournament series in the future. So if you guys check that out, I'd thank you very much for it.
Awesome, guys. So that's going to be our episode for this week. Next week, we're actually going to go through our final beta, or our final monthly meta for the... wait, is it the final monthly meta? What's the date today?
Beta
20 plays it.
It was down in 5
So yeah,
days.
no, we're going to go through our final monthly meta for the month of April. And so the final monthly meta for the beta. And so hopefully we'll go ahead and talk about DreamHack and stuff like that later on as well. But thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you later. Bye.
Yep.